Hey guys, what is going on? It is Dennis here. Welcome to another video. So today in this video, what I really wanted to do is I really wanted to answer a really common question that I've been asking, that people have been asking me, and this is going to sound surprising. In the past, the most common question that I had was, what do I merch, or how much, what do I do to make money? That was the most common question that I was asked. But then in recent times, I've been talking more and more about my goals of entering pharmacy school. And recently, I've been, I was accepted to pharmacy school months beforehand, and now I've been in pharmacy school for 2 weeks. And a lot of people have been asking me even more now, like, how do I become successful in school? And this could be someone in high school, this could be someone in college just trying to get into grad school, it could be someone in high school trying to get into college. Whatever it is, a lot of people have been messaging me about ways to improve their scores, ways to do better in school. And this has really surprised me because my channel has been more towards MapleStory. So I understand if you don't like this video, you can dislike the video. I don't mind. I'm making this video more so towards the viewers that actually need some sort of advice or direction with school. So again, if you don't like this video, I'm sorry, but it's such a commonly asked question. I really wanted to take the time out to help some of my viewers out today. So I realize this is a gaming channel, so I doubt other people are going to click on this video that actually need help from school. So that's fine. I don't really mind. It's not about the views anyways. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into this. So again, this is advice for it doesn't matter where you are. You could be in middle school, you could be in high school, you could be in college, and you're trying to go to the next step. That's what this advice is about, because really, if you have a good study habit, you have good study ethics and good work ethics, you can be successful in any part of school. So don't think this is advice just for people getting into college or even just for people getting into pharmacy school, because I want to make this video as a broad spectrum kind of thing where it can help anybody. So let's get started. I'm going to format this in the sense where you're trying to get into grad school, but realize that it doesn't matter what you're trying to do. You could be trying to go for a scholarship, you could be trying to go for an internship in a workplace, you could be going for entering college or entering grad school. It doesn't matter. All of this really applies. So if you really need to watch this video twice, go for it, because these are my experiences and these are my observations, because at this point I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of other people who have gone through these experiences that I've gone through, or maybe even more or less. But whatever the case is, we've all gone through some sort of experiences, and now we've reached this point. So I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of successful people, and I really just want to share my observations as well as my personal experiences. So let's get started. First and foremost, let's talk about our GPA, because that's the most obvious thing. And I know a lot of people don't like talking about our GPA, but it's important to talk about this. So your GPA. First of all, I'm going to talk about how to get a successful GPA, and second of all, I'm going to talk about if you've already screwed up, how you can fix yourself. So let's first talk about getting a successful GPA. Now, in order to get a successful GPA, it sounds pretty obvious. You have to study, you have to put the time into it. You will have to take some sacrifices. For example, I had to sacrifice music. I used to play music a lot. I sacrificed it. I dropped it completely. I did not touch any musical instruments for a very long time. I just dropped it. You have to take some sort of sacrifices, and that's really what I did. I don't know, if you like playing basketball, you can play basketball still. You might not be able to play every single day after school or anything like that, but you can still play basketball. Or maybe you can play every day after school. It's just 2 hours a day after school. That's fine. You don't have to kill yourself and just cut off all recreation. Recreation is important for your mental health. So remember that. I play MapleStory every day still, and I'm in pharmacy school, Don't worry, you don't have to kill yourself and not have any recreation. Do not lock yourself up in your room and just study all day, because you will burn yourself out and it will be counterproductive. Every now and then, if it's exam season, go ahead and lock yourself up in your room and just study crazy. But after you're done with that, reward yourself and always remember to have fun. But in general, we're talking about our GPA. How you really study is you might have to relearn your study habits. Some people have good study habits already. Other people don't have good study habits. Whatever it is, you might need to relearn. And what I really like to do here is, a lot of when you're starting in college, a lot of the time the exams will be Scantron exams. You will be you'll actually be just filling, like, choosing ABC or ABCD or maybe even E. So you'll just be choosing multiple choice exams. In those cases, what I recommend is doing practice exams. And sometimes the teacher might release an exam that they had for the previous year, so you can practice on that exam, look at the answer key, and see what you did wrong, what you did right. And if they don't have a practice exam, and say for example you did your first exam, you studied, and then you still screw it up, what you can do here is you can either go to your professor and ask your professor for ways to improve on your exam. Say that you studied this and you still got a D on the exam, and ask the professor for advice. Or what you can even do is you can go up to your upperclassmen, and ask them for advice. I know it sounds scary, you might not even know who the hell they are, but what you can do is you can literally go up to the upperclassmen, you can shake their hand and say, "Hi, my name is blah blah blah, I'm in this teacher's class, and can you give me some advice?" Don't be scared, because a lot of the upperclassmen they're actually not assholes. They will actually help you if you just go up and talk to them. Like, this is, as surprising as it sounds, it's true. Just go up there, shake their hand, introduce yourself, and ask for help, because it actually really works. So I know a lot of things I just said, like ask for help. Asking for help is good, but it always falls back onto you. And I said it earlier, you have to relearn your study habits. Sometimes you just have the wrong study habits. Now, analyze your professor. Sometimes, depending on how your professor works, they could be showing you, just like doing a slideshow presentation and just lecturing from that. My recommendation for that is don't read the textbook. Just don't read the textbook unless the professor specifically says to read a certain section of the textbook. Like, this is advice an upperclassman may give you as well. Just don't read the textbook. Just go from the PowerPoint slides and just take notes and read your notes, read the PowerPoints, and try to remember what the professor said. Just ignore the textbook. That's what I did for most of my undergrad, to be completely honest with you. I did not even touch any textbooks. So this is really for multiple choice exams. Now let's talk about fill in the blank exams, because we don't want to forget about those. So fill in the blank exams are more, they're more difficult. This could be either a calculus course or any math course in general. Those are usually fill in the blank. Or it could be an organic chemistry class. If you have organic chemistry, you're going to be drawing structures. Yes, I have had multiple choice organic and multiple choice calculus exams, but for the most part, these will be fill in the blank, or drawing the structures of certain things. So how to prepare for this? Now, if you've ever heard about muscle memory, it's the same thing, really. Math courses are not as complicated as they sound, because really, how many math questions can your professor ask you? They'll just change the numbers around sometimes, or it could be a completely different question. For example, if you're taking physics, they could just change the context. It could be something different. Like, for example, they could change the rotation of a Ferris wheel to the rotation of something else. It's still going to be the same question, it's just different things are spinning now. So do practice questions. That's, again, very important, to actually write out the practice questions, write out the organic structures, write out the whole entire reactions, and if it helps you, even talk out loud to yourself, read the names out loud, or you could even just all that kind of stuff. It really helps you when you just have some sort of muscle memory and you just keep on repeating it. And I know it sounds repetitive, but you could spend just a couple hours on this and you'll be completely ready for the exam. So trust me, it's not actually going to take as long as it sounds. So for the most part, that's talking about building the GPA. And this is, I also brought about some of my study techniques that I used. So hopefully that helps you guys out. Next, let's go ahead and talk about the next part of this thing, the GPA, in terms of you messed up your GPA already. Now, you could be in high school, maybe you messed up the first 2 years and you're now an upperclassman, you're a junior in high school and you're freaking out. Or you could be someone in college who completely messed up their GPA, dropped out, and you're coming back and doing a second try. Honestly, what I would say is you're not actually screwed. It sounds surprising. You are not screwed. And the reason why is because a lot of universities, a lot of colleges are very lenient. and they actually give you a chance to explain yourself. And that's the thing, you know, a lot of colleges, a lot of high schools or whatever it is, they actually have some sort of, or not high schools, a lot of colleges or universities, they have a lot of essays, entrance essays, and usually in those entrance essays they ask you things like talk about your experiences, you know. And in those cases, what you can actually do is you can explain that you screwed up, you know. You can explain, like, I went to college, and the first 2 years I flopped around, I didn't do any work. And you can talk about your learning experiences. You talk about why you changed, why you learned, why you came back for a second try. Colleges love hearing stories about people developing. They love hearing stories about people learning from experiences. So if you fucked up your GPA when you're in high school or when you're in college, don't worry about it. You can still be successful. Or say, for example, you just completely screwed up your GPA, right? Take it from me. My high school experience wasn't the best. I graduated 50%. I graduated in the 50th percentile, which means I was literally average. Now, when you think about a pharmacist, when you think about a doctor or a lawyer, you don't think about them as average people. Those are generally people that you think about as very smart people. So how did someone like me, an average person, get into pharmacy school? What I did was I went to community college. Now, it sounds boring, but here's the thing. It saves you a lot of money, and the classes in community college are generally going to be easier, if you want to put it that way, as well as the fact that usually when you go to college there's going to be hundreds of students there. Community college, maybe you'll have like 30 people in one classroom. You can get closer to your professors. It's actually easier to get a letter of recommendation or get to know your professor, so that's very important. I will talk more about letters of recommendation in the next section. So let's continue talking about fixing your GPA that you screwed up. So I didn't do well in high school. I went to community college. I got a great GPA in community college, and eventually that allowed me to get into pharmacy school. So, you know, I skipped a lot when I said that. But don't worry, at the end of this video, you'll understand everything about the process of how I got into pharmacy school. So, fixing your GPA, don't be afraid and don't give up, because you can pick yourself up. For example, even if you just went to college your freshman year, you screwed up your freshman year, don't give up, don't screw up your sophomore year, keep on going, and later on the admissions officers, or not the admissions officers, but later on when you apply for colleges, they will have essays, they will have some form of essays, and you can actually explain yourself, or even they might even actually have a section in the application where it actually says, like, did you get a low grade before? And if you say yes, they'll ask you. They will literally ask you, why did you get a low grade and what did you learn from the experience? So colleges love hearing those kinds of stories. So don't be afraid, and as long as you're completely honest with it and you're genuine with your response, they won't hold it against you that you screwed up in the past. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about letters of recommendation. I alluded to this earlier, and letters of recommendation are very important. And how you can get these letters of recommendation, again, I'll refer back to myself as a pharmacy student. You see me in pharmacy school now, and a lot of pharmacy students had letters of recommendation from other licensed pharmacists in the community, or from practicing in a hospital, or practicing as a pharmacy technician. They actually had a job as a technician. So whatever the case is, they've had some work experience, or they've had volunteer experiences, or they've had something where they connected themselves with a pharmacist. That is an excellent way to get a letter of recommendation. However, for myself, I did not have that. I did not have any connections with any pharmacist or anything of that nature. So let's talk about that first. And I want to talk about that, and I'll lead on to how you can actually know some people that are in your profession. So, personally for myself, I did not have any sort of connection. And what I did to alleviate that is I went to other people. You know, I went to some of my college professors. I went to some of my employers. Like, I worked as a computer technician. So I went to my computer technician. I went to my boss, and I asked him for a letter of recommendation. Now, they asked me to get a pharmacist or a letter of recommendation from a hospital. I did not have that, so this is what I did instead, and it worked out fine. And the reason why is because it doesn't matter if it's a pharmacist or not. If it's a pharmacist, obviously they can tell you them things like, hey, we did this and this and this, and the student performed well. You know, that's good. But even if it's not a pharmacist, what my employer said was he told them that I worked hard, I was always on task, I never goofed off, I learned very fast, and overall I was an excellent person that they hired, you know, because this is the guy that's paying me. So if he's paying me and he's happy, then obviously, you know, he's not going to bullshit. So it sounds good. So even if it's not a pharmacist, even if it's someone that's not in connection with your field that you're trying to get into, it's totally fine. And if you're just applying for college, of course you don't have to get a pharmacist, because if you're just applying for some college, like, I don't know, some random college like UT or something, you obviously don't need a pharmacist, and an employer letter will work perfectly for you. So that's good. The next thing that you could get as well is a letter from a professor or a teacher in high school, and how you build this connection, because I know a lot of people can't build these connections, and they're very afraid, or they don't know how to start. So here's my advice to you guys. Again, earlier I said for the GPA section, I said something along the lines of you can just go up to your upperclassmen, shake their hands, introduce yourselves, and tell them that you're struggling in a class, you know, and the upperclassmen will likely help you. If they don't help you, just go to a different upperclassman. Same thing with professors, same thing with anything of that nature, or even just going up to your local Walgreens and just going up to a pharmacist and shaking his hand and introducing yourself. You can do any of that kind of stuff. So getting to know your professor, how do you do it? Whether you're in high school or whether you're in university, you can literally go up and shake the professor's hand. Now here's the thing, let's talk about 3 different scenarios. The first scenario is high school. With high school, you are likely to have a better connection with the professor since there are fewer people in that classroom. What you should do is you should actually interact with your professor. Stay after class, talk to your professor, be friends with your professors, or even you know, you can send your professors emails asking for questions. Like say for example you have a math professor, right, or math teacher in high school. You could literally just send them an email about the homework question, you know, like ask them a question about the homework, and it will really show your professor that you're actually working. Because if you're asking them about the homework, like a specific question, like say for example question number 55 in page 230, you know, if you ask them specifically a question like that, it makes you look so good. And the reason why is because it actually shows that you're doing the work that they're assigning, and it also shows that you're paying attention in class. This will really build your rapport well for a high school professor as well as a college professor. So you do that, and it will make you look so amazing. And as well as the fact that they will also help you, because they're very happy to help you. So send them emails when possible, or even just stay after class and ask them these questions, because it really sets you apart, because they see your face often, they see your emails often, they see you're actually working. You will look so good. So this also goes along the lines of I guess college. A college professor, a community college professor I'm specifically talking about, you might have like 20 or 30 students in your classroom. How do you set yourself apart? Because this is different from high school. When you're in high school, you're likely to see your teacher 5 days a week. When you're in college, you might see your teacher 1, 2, maybe even 3 times a week, and that's it, you know? So you have fewer time to build a connection with your professor. So how do you actually do it? Same thing, emailing, staying after class. Do as much as you can. Of course, it helps if you have a better grade, and you have fewer examinations in college. So it's really the same thing as in high school. You really just want to connect with them. So let's just go ahead and talk about university now. University professors, there are usually maybe 100 to 300 students. So if you're in a class with 300 students, how do you set yourself apart from these 300 people? Same thing. Emails, stay for their office hours. A lot of professors have office hours. Pay attention, find their office hours, go to their office hours, be proactive, show up as often as possible. Emails, make sure they know your name, and make sure they know your name. It really helps when the professor, if your name's Adrian and you're walking down the hallway and the professor's like, hey Adrian, it really helps when the professor knows you by a first name basis, and you obviously in a professional way know them by Dr. blah blah blah, or Mr. blah blah blah. But it really, really, really will help you in that kind of sense. So when you do it like that, your professor will definitely be able to write you a better letter of recommendation, because imagine how this sounds. Let's say, for example, you want a letter of recommendation. You go up to a professor that you don't really know, and they write you a very generic letter. Every letter has a format. Every professor has a format already stored in their desk. So they'll take it out. They'll put your name on the letter. They'll just say like, this guy was in my class. He got a B in my class, and he's a good student. Let him in college. That's what the letter will say, something like that, because the professor really doesn't know who the fuck you are, but the professor doesn't want to be mean to you, so they'll write you a shitty letter anyways. They're not going to say anything bad about you, but if they do, then you're screwed. But most of the time the professor won't say anything bad. They'll just say like, yeah, he was in my class, he got a B, and let him in college. Some shit letter like that. So instead of getting a shit letter like that, because it actually makes you look bad for the admissions, what you can do is you can connect with your professor. Imagine how good this will sound. Your professor says that you stayed after class for your office hours, you emailed, you did all your homework, you did excellently in class, and you shined above the other students. And especially when you have 300 other classmates and the professor says that about you, you sound very good, and it puts you above the rest of the competition. So be proactive as possible. Obviously you don't have to do this with all your professors. Just reach out to a few of your professors, and maybe one or two professors. You do this, you show up at their office hours, you will look excellent. And again, if you want a scholarship as well, usually scholarships will ask you for a letter of recommendation as well. You can also ask that professor for help with scholarships as well, and the professor will most likely help you. So that's with letters of recommendation, and this really extends beyond everything else. It extends to getting to know professionals as well. So let's talk a bit about that. So say for example you're like me and you wanted to get into pharmacy school. How do you do it? Say for example you want a pharmacy technician job. You actually want a job as a technician. You have to go to that person. You can go straight to Walgreens. You go into Walgreens, you wait in line, and when it's your turn, you talk to the cashier and you say, can you please speak with the pharmacist? You want to get to know the pharmacist, or maybe you can say, I want to shadow the pharmacist, anything of that nature. You really start building your rapport at that point, and you get to know the pharmacist. You explain the pharmacist your situation, like, hey, I'm a prospective pharmacy student, and you ask them if you want to shadow them, or maybe you want an internship, or you want something. And if it fails, just go to a different pharmacist and keep on repeating. As surprising as it sounds, it's not actually that difficult. Most people are successful in their first or second attempts, which is actually pretty amazing. Some people are very unlucky, but most people are actually very successful in terms of building some sort of a relation with that pharmacist. So it's all about being proactive, whether it be building a connection with the professor by staying after class, or building a connection with the pharmacist by going to their pharmacy and introducing yourselves. It's about being proactive and reaching out, because the pharmacist is not going to show up at your house and say, hey, do you need a letter of recommendation? They're not going to do that. So you have to show up at their place and you have to ask them for help. And don't worry about quote unquote bothering the pharmacist or bothering the professor. It's their job to it's not their job to help you in that kind of sense, but usually if these people are teachers or pharmacists, they're usually very caring people, very generous people, or just people that are very understanding in general. So it's definitely a good place to start. And if your professor or pharmacist is not like that, don't worry, just go to a different person and you will find the help that you need eventually. So the next thing I want to talk about is examinations, and this is a very scary topic for a lot of people, and it's very understandable why, because this is different from GPA. I talked about the GPA as something that you build up for like 3 years. You could spend 2 to 3 years building your GPA, and let's go ahead and talk about examinations, and we're talking specifically about entrance exams. I know if you're in high school trying to get into college, they have the SATs. You could be trying to get into pharmacy school, they have the PCAT, you're trying to get into medical school, they have the MCAT or the LSAT for law school, whatever the case is. There are a lot of examinations. And here's the thing about normal exams. You know, if you just go to school for a science exam, you can spend 2 days studying for that science exam. You go there, you get an A, woohoo, you know, nice. This is different. We're talking about entrance exams. We're talking about these big exams, and these big exams are very, very scary. This is what usually screws everybody, so pay attention. Now, the most important thing that I want you guys to take away from this whole entire video, I know it's 25 minutes in, but I really had to set everything else up before I said this. So this is the most important thing that I want you guys to take away from this whole entire video. You need direction. And what is direction? So we're talking about some form of a goal. You need to set yourself goals, small goals and the ultimate goal. You need to set yourself a whole bunch of goals, and you need to meet those goals. Set yourself reasonable goals and make sure to continue setting those goals and hitting those goals, because that is the most important thing. If you lose sight of yourself, if you lose sight of direction, you will be lost at sea. You will be lost in the ocean with nowhere. You can't see any islands, you can't see any land from all horizons, 360. You will be lost in the ocean. So you need to never lose direction of what you're trying to do, because the moment you lose direction, you lose everything else. And that is the most important thing I want you guys to take away from this video. So let's talk about direction in terms of everything else that I mentioned. You need direction if you want to get a good GPA. You're spending 3 years building your GPA. So you need direction to always lead yourself through every exam, lead yourself through every small exam, every large exam, final exam season, all that kind of stuff. You need direction. You need direction when you go and meet the professor. If the professor sees you as a very ambitious person, as a very hardworking person, they will pick up on it and they will mention it in that letter of recommendation. You need direction. When you get into these big examinations in terms of the PCAT or something like that, you need direction. If you do not have direction, you won't be able to study and you'll cover everything. So a big examination, you know, if you don't know what that is, I'll explain a little bit about it. They're going to test everything that you know. There will be usually a math section, a science section, an English section, maybe a history section, or whatever the case is. There will be multiple sections. For the PCAT, there were multiple math sections, there were multiple English sections, there were multiple science sections, there were multiple sections. They test you on everything. So imagine going to your undergrad for 3 years and getting a good GPA, right? And all of a sudden they want you to do a PCAT. What is a PCAT? Well, what a PCAT is they will ask you questions from all through your undergrad. Essentially, you're going to have to study, relearn all 3 years of what you just went through, and take an exam about all 3 years of it. You know, I talked about earlier, just a simple science exam. You study for 2 days, you go to the science exam, you get an A. Big whoop, you know? This is the PCAT. You're studying for all 3 years of what you learned. You're going to that exam, you're going to be tested on everything. It sounds fucking scary. And this is what a lot of people fuck up on. They lose direction, they lose sight of everything, and they fuck up. I said it earlier, make goals for yourself. Every week set a goal. This week I'm going to learn this part of the math section. Next week I'll learn the next part of the math section. Next week I'll learn the next part of the math section. Set goals, cut everything up into little sections, dissect the entire exam, and go at it in that kind of way. And this really brings you back to this. Let's tie this whole entire thing together. Say, for example, for the big exam that you have, you need to study for a certain part of the math exam. Say, for example, it's calculus. You're not that good at calculus, and you already graduated from your calculus course. You already passed it a year ago. What do? Here's what you do. So you already have the GPA. I don't know, you got a B in the class, you know, that's fine. So you go back to your calculus professor, you know, you might not even be welcome, but it doesn't matter. Say, for example, you're in high school or you're in college. You go back to that calculus professor after class. You send them an email or whatever, and you ask them for help. You know, they might have office hours, they might have tutoring or whatever, and they usually will be happy to help you even though you're not in their class, or maybe you are in their class, you know. So go over to them, reach out to them, ask them for some form of help in terms of bring questions from your study exams or just your study books. Bring questions, ask them for help. See how they do it and learn from how they solve those certain math problems. And what this will do is it'll do two things. First of all, it will teach you. But second of all, it will make you look good to that professor. So if you need a letter of recommendation, you can ask them because it shows that you're actually proactive and working hard. So it's always that kind of thing with building your credentials. But back to studying for this exam. As much as possible, gather as many resources as you can. Don't over gather your resources because you can't cover all the information. But what I recommend is buying a study book, a SAT study book, a PCAT study book, MCAT study book, whatever it is. Go to your local bookstore, like half price books or whatever. Go ahead and just buy one. The books aren't usually that expensive. Or you can just go to the library and just study there, or just borrow the book. Whatever it is, go for it and get the book and study. And again, break it up into little sections. I know if you bring like a 5-pound book home, it's a massive book with like 1,000 pages. It's fucking scary and you don't know where to begin. And again, if you're in that mindset, you will get lost in the ocean. Tackle the book as best as you can. Make a plan. Take a calendar and just take a blank calendar and just write the plans out that you have. And if you don't meet your goals that time, don't worry about it. Just readjust your plan. Like, say for example, you set one whole entire week to study a science section, but you didn't finish it yet, and now you have to study the math section this week. Try to adjust your plans. Try to always hit your goals. Set reasonable goals, and you will hit those goals. You will perform to what you need to perform. Now, come exam day, what you need to know is, well, my advice for you during exam day is usually the exams will be held early in the morning. And I know for myself, I wasn't a morning person. I usually slept at like 4 a.m. and I would wake up at like 12 p.m. And my exam was like at 7 a.m. So I had to wake up at like 6 a.m. So what you need to do is you need to prepare ahead of time. Readjust your sleep schedule a week ahead of time or even more than that. As well as changing your breakfast. This is the important thing, and a lot of people fuck up on this. Imagine you don't drink coffee. You've never drank coffee before. And then on exam day, you want more caffeine in your system. You're nervous, so you drink coffee. And then you start taking the exam. Halfway through the exam, you have diarrhea. You're fucked. You've got diarrhea. You're trying to finish this exam. You're not allowed to leave the exam because you can't just go to the restroom in the middle of an exam. They're not going to let you do that. You're fucked. What are you going to do? You fuck up this exam. Next time you have to retake the exam. There are retakes, so don't worry about it. But let's get that image out of our heads now, and let's just take the image out of our heads. Here's what I recommend for you guys. A week ahead of time, you guys need to pick a diet for yourself. And I don't mean like stop eating. When I mean pick a diet, I mean pick a course of action. What kind of foods are you going to eat for the next week? For the next week, follow this strict diet. For example, I drink coffee every morning, so I continue drinking coffee every morning. If you have eggs every morning, keep on having eggs every single morning. Do not eat something that you are not used to eating. A lot of times, I will see people that they've never eaten. Say, for example, they don't eat fast food in the morning. They never eat fast food in the morning. They always have home cooking. On the day of the exam, they have like, I don't know, Wendy's or McDonald's in the morning, and then they have an upset stomach later. Don't let that happen to you. Your body is used to certain things. Your body is used to your sleeping schedule. If you don't have a good sleeping schedule, adjust your sleeping schedule ahead of time. If you don't have a good eating habit or a good eating schedule, make one. A week ahead, make whatever you're going to eat. If you want to eat McDonald's breakfast 7 days a week, start early. Eat McDonald's breakfast that morning. Next morning, eat McDonald's breakfast. The morning after that, eat McDonald's again. Keep on eating these same foods. Your body will adjust. You won't have a stomachache on the day of the exam. That is important. So, it sounds stupid. You study for the exam and then you eat something wrong, you have a stomachache, and you screw up your whole exam. Don't let that happen to you. Set your body up and make sure your body is ready to perform for that day. So that's very important. So I hope you guys pay attention to that part of the this video. So the final section that I want to talk about is interviews. And usually when you're entering college, they're usually not going to interview you, so you don't have to worry about this. But if you're entering a grad school program, or if you're entering a job, you want an internship, they're usually going to interview you. So you're going to have to prepare yourself for the interview process. And the interview process is pretty scary again, but don't worry. I procrastinated for my interview. I'll be completely honest. I spent like a week preparing, and that's it. But if you really want to be serious about this, definitely try to prepare a month or two ahead of time. And when you practice for your interview, actually wear your suit. Wear your suit so your body's, you're not uncomfortable. Wear your suit so you make sure you're comfortable wearing that suit come the time of the actual interview. Wear your suit, let your body adjust, and practice. A lot of universities, they have services where you can actually go and they will actually have fake interviews for you to practice on. Or if you don't have that service, you could go up and you could ask your friends or your parents to interview you. I prefer not asking my parents because my parents are Asian. They don't know how to interview. But if you have like a friend that's also going to college, you and your friend can take turns interviewing each other. And it might be difficult at first because they're your friend and you don't want to, it's hard to give a serious response, but get your head in the game, get your friend's head in the game, both of you guys focus, both of you guys go at it and interview each other. So what are the questions they usually ask on an interview? Usually the first question they ask is something along the lines of, tell me something about yourself. And from that point onwards, they are going to interview you from that. If you say you're a hardworking person, they might say, give me an example of a time that you were a hardworking person. Something like that. If you say something like you're good at problem solving, they might ask you later, tell me a time when you used your problem solving skills to actually be successful, So never say something that you can't back up, because if you get stuck in an interview, if you say something like, I'm a good problem solver, and they ask you, tell me a time that you solved a problem, and you freeze up, what are they going to think, So always be prepared. Always say, always have extra. Always have something ready. If you can't say something during the interview, you better think fast, okay? And don't try changing this topic, because they won't change the topic. These interviewers have been trained. They will dig into you, so you need to be ready. And I know it sounds scary, but this is really just preparing you guys, because if you try to change the topic, it makes you look pretty bad. So just don't let that happen to yourself. So continue practicing these questions, and Google up a whole bunch of interview questions, the most common interview questions. There are other questions they could ask you. For example, why do you want to work for HEB? Why do you want to work for Walgreens? Or why do you want to join this school? That kind of stuff. Don't make any jokes like, I wanted to join this school because it was the only school that accepted me for an interview. Don't say something like that, because as funny as that sounds, they don't take jokes that seriously. So make sure you know some stuff about their history, the school's history. Make sure you know something about, like, Walgreens, something you could say. For example, if I was going to intern, here's what I would say. Something along the lines of, the reason why I came to HEB was because I heard you guys did a lot of outreach programs in terms of, or did a whole bunch of, yeah, see, I already tripped up myself. Something about how they do a lot of philanthropy projects in terms of helping needy kids, helping homeless people, or just something of that nature. Talk about their stuff, make sure you show that you've done your research. If you mention something like a project that they did, then it makes you look good. It shows that you care. It shows that you want to get in. It shows that you're serious, and it shows that you've actually done your homework. So again, it shows you're proactive, and that's the most important thing, because when they see that you're serious, they will put serious consideration back into you, and then that will just make it more likely that you will get a good interview score. So putting all those things together, a good GPA, good examinations, good interview, good letters of recommendation, you put that all together, you should most likely, as weird as it sounds, people always show up all these statistics saying, like 80% of people fail to get into pharmacy school. Guess what? Those 80% are usually people who didn't give a shit. Those 20% of the people that actually apply, that actually make it, are those people that actually gave a shit. So if you're someone that gives a shit right now, forget about those 80%. You're in that 20% that gives a shit. Forget about failing. Yes, you might fail the first time, but you will get into pharmacy school. That I can say for sure. Because if you're within that 20%, you could fail the first 3 times and you'll make it the 4th time. You will continue. As long as you're in that 20% that actually gives a shit, you will make it eventually. It might be a different school that you're applying for, but you will make it into pharmacy school. So don't be afraid. Keep on aiming forward. Never lose sight of yourself. Always have direction, and you will be successful. Now, real quick, let's go ahead and I want to talk about another topic, which is about after you actually make it in. Now, here's something that I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I mentioned changing your study habits, and I mentioned this in the GPA section. So let's talk about making it in. Say, for example, you're from high school, you just made it to college. Or maybe you're in college and you just made it to university. There will be changes. Oh, let me tell you, there will be changes. For example, you get into college, all of a sudden you see people drinking alcohol, you see people partying, you get invitations to parties, you see all these hot girls, What do? You get lost. You might get lost. You might lose direction of everything. You might go ahead and just go crazy, and you might just start partying, and you might fuck up your first year or something of that nature. Don't let that happen to you, because fixing your GPA is difficult. I said it was possible, and it is very possible, and colleges are very understanding of when you screw up. But obviously, it would be better if you just didn't screw up in general. So, never let that catch you off guard. There will be changes in terms of changing your study habits. So make sure you make those adjustments. If you fuck up because of some changes that happen from high school to college, reach out to your upperclassmen. Look for tutoring. Look for your professors. Talk to them. Have some sort of way to actually change your study habits and go from there. Continually evolve. If you do not evolve, you will go out of date and you will fail. Next, let's talk about having fun, because I know a lot of people want to have fun. I said it earlier and I'll say it again. Don't lock yourself up in your room and just study like crazy. You don't have to do that. It doesn't matter how smart or stupid you are. Fuck all that. Forget about how smart or stupid you think you are. Have fun when you want to have fun, but always have moderation. If you want to join a fraternity or sorority, go ahead and do that. Don't do stupid shit like hazing, but hey, if that's you, go for it. But I'm probably going to join a fraternity as well in pharmacy school, and we're having a lot of fun. I have 2 pool parties that I'm going to attend next week. There's going to be a pool party on Tuesday and another one on Wednesday. And those are all fine and dandy. I can go to the pool parties, I can hang out with people, and I can go home and I can get back right on task. I play MapleStory, and that's cool as well. I play MapleStory, and then I'm still able to perform in school. That's important. Have a balance between social life and recreation and school. There will be sacrifices that have to be made. I said I gave up on music. I dropped it. I played music for 15 years, and then all of a sudden I dropped it. There will be changes that need to be made, and you have to be ready to evolve and adapt to those changes. So you go to a sorority, you go to those parties, you can have fun, you can drink alcohol, you can smoke weed if you feel like it, but after you do all that, remember to remain on task. Remember to never lose sight of those goals. And if you can remember that, then you, my friends, are going to be a successful person. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is just my 2 cents on how to become successful in terms of gathering connections in school and in whatever you want to do. Now, if you're going to school, those 4 years, those 3 years, those 7 years, 8 years, how many years you want to spend in school, those years will fly by. You might think right now, oh, I'm going to pharmacy school, it's going to take me 7 years, you might think it's dreadful. Those years will fly by. You will look back and you will remember those years as the most eventful years, the best years of your life. So make the most of it. Don't fuck up. And remember to have fun. Remember to be human. Remember to enjoy yourself. And remember to work hard. Because there have been studies that have been showing, that show that people, how they recall their memories. When you're 1 year old, that's 100% of your life. You've been 1 year old, and that's 100%. When you're 10 years old, and you think back to 1 year old, you know, it's a smaller percentage. When you're 1 year old, that's 100%. When you're 2 years old, that's 50% of your life. When you're 3 years old, that's 1/3 of your life. As that extends, when you're 80 years old, 80-year-old people, when they look back at what half their life was, they don't actually look back at when they were 40, which is surprising. Instead of looking back at when they were 40, they actually look back at when they were 20 years old. So even when you're 80 years old, you look back, when you say what was half my life ago, they usually think back to their 20s and how they had fun in college and all that kind of stuff. So these few years are going to be important. These few years are going to define you. So have fun and never lose sight of your goals. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later.